You're listening to Unapologetic, hosted by Eric King.
Without further ado, I do want to bring in everyone who is a part of this discussion. First, I do have in studio the one, the only, Karlton Lassiter. How you doing, Fred? Hold on, let's make sure we got the right mic. Go ahead.
I'm doing good.
No, we still ain't got you. Let's figure where you at. Go ahead and talk.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh man, we're going to figure out what mic you're supposed to be on. Go on over to the next one, then we'll figure it out. Next. Oh, actually, that one was hot. So go ahead and stay there. Just don't do your Barry White voice.
You got jokes.
I got all types of jokes. I got all types of jokes. But we got to figure out who you are. Next, we got brother James Bates. James Bates has been my friend, my brother for, many, many, many years. I like to bring him into the conversation. Brother James Bates, are you there?
I am here.
All right, so we got to turn everybody up. All right. You in there? Let me hear you talk.
Hello.
Hello. All right, next I have my one and only co-host, Rachel Hill. She is the beautiful sports reporter, beautiful and intelligent sports reporter. She is doing all things, and she is also a part of her own show. And Sister Hill, what's the name of your show?
Called Her in the Huddle.
Her in the Huddle, and that comes on Mondays. Is that correct?
No, so it's a podcast now through OWOVO, and it's on Saturdays at 7 a.m.
Look at you, done got a podcast
on iHeartRadio.
Lord have mercy. Okay, I see how they doing. Right. So we do got to get Karlton's mic taken care of because I don't know which mic he on and which mic he going to be on. So before we jump on, we're gonna start with James first until we figure out which mic Karlton need to be on. We're gonna start with James first. So,
all right.
Without further ado, I do want to talk James. James, you are what's called a staunch Trump supporter, and you have
staunch.
That's what they say. That's what they say when they're talking on the radio. Staunch. And I got a lot of education, but I have absolutely no clue what staunch mean. But we'll figure it out. At any case, you've been a supporter of Trump since day one. Is that pretty much right?
I have, and I will actually add to that I was prior to that a two-time Obama voter.
Right, and it is interesting that Trump supporters, especially those of color, tend to bring that up, and we get it. You want your kudos, and you were dissatisfied, and you went to the other party. It's okay. But it's kind of interesting that so let's just jump into the foreign policy. Let's not go anywhere. So The U.S. strikes 3 Iran nuclear sites in over the weekend, and for the most part, give or take, those supporters of Trump are a bit divided. So if we're looking at this concept of strength, James, is this strength or is this a dangerous pattern?
Well, I know that obviously, the president had said that, before making a decision, he wanted to think it through. I do think, though, that this is strength. And here's why. I think that, decisive action against a hostile regime like Iran actually demonstrates that, American resolve. I think under Trump that military interventions have been strategic and limited, and not, any kind of endless wars or starting of new wars. For example, despite, major threats from Iran, Trump did pursue de-escalation through strength, like that targeted attack back in 2020 of Qasem Soleimani, I think, which deterred Iranian aggression without triggering any broader conflict. So I think, with him being a business leader, and I think many business leaders probably, understand leverage. And I think Trump did use this effectively on the global stage, and didn't start any new wars, unlike many of his predecessors, if you will. So I think that again that it was very strategic. I think that mission accomplished. what it was meant to accomplish, which is to mitigate the proliferation of, nuclear arms by Iran. And quite honestly, Trump has been very forceful in saying, everybody knows FAFO, right? And I think everybody knows what that means.
Yeah, I know what that means.
And that's the thing that I would say is that, it is decisive action. It is something that he used, I think, strategically in this. And we see now, right, that I think Iran is backing down. I think some of the reports that I read, that they were talking about the other day, trying to bomb, our army bases in Qatar. But they kind of gave a heads up, as I understand, before they did that, right? So what does that tell you? Let's just be honest. Let's just put it out there. The United States has the strongest military in the world. Those bombs that were dropped were bombs that nobody else in the world even has the capabilities of deploying. I think it was very strategic. The fact that those military men and women were able to execute that pretty flawlessly, I would say, is a message to the world of the might that the American military has. Let's be honest, too. I mean, we really still kind of are, unfortunately, like the de facto police of the world. Can you imagine any other country, right, other than the United States that would have been able to help in that?
Let me
yeah.
But hold on, let me jump up in here because I'm not sure if anyone wanted to be the de facto police of the world. And what I remember is, especially with Hillary Clinton, if she was a hawk, she's a war hawk, she's this, she's that. No one wanted to be the police. What they wanted was American exceptionalism. But I'm a bounce it over to Karlton. So if you look at it from a working class, or if you look at it from how us as individuals on the ground, is our mindset set for a crisis mode? And what do you think the long-term implications of this strike, and even what James is saying as it relates to being the police of the world? What is the long-term effect of this?
Yeah, I'm glad to be on a working mic now. But but no, thanks for having me. I think I want to actually go back to something that James had mentioned. And so I don't think it is known at this moment whether it will be a long-term war or not. We still have to see what happens and what Iran decides. I think one thing that we forget is that we can do whatever measures we want militarily, but there are two sides to the conflict. And if Iran does not feel that they need to oblige to that, then they can pursue whatever course of action they choose, and we'll have to determine accordingly where things go. I think the other thing that we have to really, when we're talking about specifically this matter, is address the fact that Trump in his first term, in really his first month, ended the Iran nuclear deal, which was what had been agreed to under the Obama administration to control a lot of these nuclear arms, which are now the reasoning behind why we conducted such attacks last weekend. And so if we had maybe kept that deal in place, we probably wouldn't be in this position.
Gotcha.
But I think to actually answer the question that you had asked, so when you think about it, when you look at Generation X and even my generation, millennials, we're used to foreign engagement, foreign conflicts in the Middle East, whether it was the Gulf War or the war in Iraq following 9/11.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think we are really looking at the possibility, if things escalate, this being Gen Z's long-term war in the Middle East, and with the once again stated notion around nation building, which I think has been problematic from the beginning, because America does not know how to build another nation. We can build this nation,
Right. We're still trying to build,
and we're still trying to fix it and
Yeah.
get it right to where we want it to be. But for us to say, hey, we got this down pat, let's go on to somewhere else, like that, it has not worked and it will not work.
Right.
And I don't know if I would say that we are in a perpetual crisis mode. But we have to have a much better articulated strategy from our military leaders, from our political leaders, around what does our engagement in the Middle East look like? What does that look like beyond just Israel and beyond just our oil relational partner countries? And I think now we're starting to see why organizations like USAID and a lot of these other international aid and other organizations that we either funded or had as part of our government that have been decimated or entirely cut, why they're important. Because you have to have what I remember during when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she talked about wanting to implement smart power and wanting that to be diplomacy through strength, but not necessarily through military strength, but through diplomatic and other cultural means that can ingratiate more longer lasting and deep rooted connections between countries and peoples. And I think we've got to get back to some of those roots. I don't know if we'll do it in this administration, but we do need to figure out what does that look like. And unfortunately, I think when we're looking at just how does this overall conflict impact our current situation, the generation now and to come, like I said, it's yet to be determined, but I hope, just like every other American, that this is ended soon. But based on reports that the attack only maybe set back Iran's nuclear program by like 6 months tops, is not encouraging, especially when you drop a lot of bombs, expensive bombs.
So, Rachel, I want to bring you in because although your focus is sports, you're a citizen just like we are. I mean, you've been watching everything that is going on. So based off of what James and Karlton said, what are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I want to say hello to both of our guests. Hi, James. How are you?
Hey,
Hope you're doing well.
yes.
Both excellent points made by both guests. One of the things I like to report is my line by Tupac. We have money for wars, but we can't feed the poor. So, this is one of the things that I would say the average American citizen, we're sick of being, the de facto police overseas where we have so many things that we need to focus on over here. And, North Korea has nuclear weapons as well. What are we going to do about them? I mean, we don't want to engage in war with them, but if we're going to bomb everybody that has nuclear weapons, what else are we going to do? Because there's nothing to stop North Korea from bombing us. I know that, Trump supposedly has a good relationship with, what's his name, King Jong-il. Yeah. So he has a good relationship with him, but what's to stop us from bombing anybody else and them bombing us in return and starting a war? Nobody wants to have that happen. So, I'm all about, of course, taking care of the world, but also taking care of the country. Like you guys mentioned how expensive the bombs are, and think about the things that are being taken away. People are about to lose Medicaid, things of that nature. So we're not even taking care of the citizens here, yet we have enough capacity to, bomb the world and things like that. So I'm definitely not in favor of those bomb strikes at all. And, if you have Republicans divided on this as well, then that's not a great thing. Usually they're in lockstep with everything that Trump does, but they're not in lockstep with this. So that's definitely not a great thing.
So cash moves everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bill, y'all. So
Yes, sir.
everybody didn't talk about money. Let's look at it from a standpoint of workers. So we're gonna start with Karlton on this one. If you're laying off individuals that voted for Trump, right, and you're laying off individuals and you're stating the reason why you're laying off individuals has to, these are public workers. These are individuals that work in governmental jobs, which used to be the safest job to have back in the day, right? If you're not gonna go to college, if you're not gonna do this, go work for the government. Now, I'm someone who has a problem with bloat, and I understand bloat. The problem is when we go through and we ramrod the way that this happened, you're getting the money, but are you telling me that the cream is literally, or the money, right, is literally the only reason why to displace these individuals from a financial status that they have only to quote unquote in the next maybe 10 to 15 years, allow the workers or the economy to recover. So I'm gonna start with you. So what does bypassing Congress signals to workers in America?
So unfortunately, this bypassing of Congress has been happening for a long time, for generations now.
Okay.
And that's both through presidential action, but also through Congress itself enabling the executive at that time to do whatever they choose. I think one of the things that I've noticed, and what we probably all noticed, is that Democrats have struggled to in their counter messaging on
Yes.
this mightily, which is
an understatement.
Which is,
for everyone as a Democrat, that is an understatement.
It's disappointing, but also completely expected. And I think we've also at the same time seen Republicans not understand and be capable of managing the government when they're in leadership. They are very good at saying no and being against things, but not very good at actually putting forth the agenda that they say they seek to have. When you talk about like laying off folks and its impacts, I even go back to just my own personal experience. So since I've been back home for the summer, my own mom has been trying to get some issues with Social Security situated, but they have laid off so many people, they have made so many cuts, and it's hard to get in touch with anybody. And I think we've seen that for years that Republicans have talked about, government being bloated. It's this big thing. It's wasteful spending, and it's all large and unnecessary. But in fact, we've learned that the government is large because it is necessary, because it is doing the things seen and unseen that we take for granted or just don't even pay attention to, because we shouldn't honestly have to pay attention to those things. But but we all agree it can be done better. I don't necessarily know if the means, whether it's through Doge or whatever, that this administration has done is the right or necessary way to get to that. But I do think we've now understand that whether it's the National Weather Service and how it impacts some of these horrible forecasts that we've been getting since they've had cuts, or some of these other things that have been impactful when you're looking at even rural country parts of the country and things like that, whether it's accessing healthcare or food and things like that. And we have to be careful now, and I hope we have a greater appreciation of what it means for government to be of this nation, to be as large as it is, and to do all the things that it does, and what those necessary pieces are. We need to have and put the onus on our legislators to make those things more efficient, to have the proper oversight. And we have to also hold the executive branch accountable to say, like, hey, this is what we are looking for in terms of your overall messaging and how it's all working interconnectedly.
So let me jump in on that, and we're gonna bring James in that. This is where I have the problem. And I'm at 50 years old, right? So I've been paying attention to politics for a while. My grandmother was a union leader for Sherwin-Williams. And what I've noticed, as long as I've been paying attention to politics, is we take too long to get things done. Now, I do feel as though we need to, expedite some of these things, and things cost too much, right? The common stapler from Staples probably costs about $5, but if it comes from the government, Staples going to charge them $25. I have a problem with that, and I also have a problem with how fast change goes. So I'm gonna bounce over to James. So are we cutting, so-called fat, or are we cutting off the whole democratic process in how this country is supposed to be ran?
Well, I mean, there's some actually points that I would agree with you on, such as that, probably the method by which, when you look at the cuts that have been made, right? I think it's more not so much an issue of what's being done. It obviously it's how it's being done, but we have to understand too that everybody has different methods by which to get to the end, right? Of what it is that they're trying to do. This isn't the first time in American history, right, where there's been efforts to streamline, the federal workforce and government. I mean, during the Clinton administration, there were efforts to streamline. I remember very vividly when Obama ran. We're going to go line by line, and make an assessment of, what programs are working, what programs are not working, and adjust. And, government, unfortunately, has just gotten more and more bloated. I don't think anybody does, right, wants to see anybody lose their job, obviously, in that. But just like in private business, when decisions have to be made and people have to be, cut, that has to be done. And usually, if you look at any business, right, your overhead, by and large, as far as money, dollars are in salaries, right, or in people. And so, unfortunately, that's just part of what has to happen. We can't continue to support such a large federal workforce. There's been some. I would even argue too that some of the ideas that have been floated by the Trump administration about breaking up the federal government and kind of, if you will, outsourcing some of the things to different areas or different states is an idea that probably isn't a bad one. There's so much that's concentrated there in DC, and there is a huge bloat in that. Like, imagine, we've got NASA Glenn here. So imagine if NASA were to be here, right? There could still be obviously job opportunities for people here in other places. DC, listen, I lived in Alexandria. I lived in the DC suburbs for a time. I know how expensive it is. It is there. There definitely needs to be something that has to be done. We can't, and we've got, I don't even know what the number is. It's probably up to $38 trillion by now, our national debt. We got to figure out something because, Gen Z and now I guess Gen Alpha, right? That's coming behind them. It's going to be in real trouble if we don't do something about, this money that we're spending. Everybody that has a job right now that's making money, everybody's got a budget, right? And we have to figure out what is essential for us to be able to, to live as a nation, and what are things that we can do without. There are things we can do without, I believe. We obviously have to be strategic in what those programs are that we do cut or scale back. But here's the thing, and I agree with Rachel 100% that we need to focus back on, like more what we're doing here for Americans here. I'd actually be in favor of spending, if we're going to spend money, spend it on Americans versus, foreign nations, for example. But we have to be strategic with that. We have to figure out what's going to get kind of the biggest bang for the buck, if you will. And we have to also be realistic and pragmatic and know that we're not going to be able to help everybody. That's just not how it works. I mean, the fact that we have, a social safety net here in the United States is something that actually I think we take for granted quite often. I mean, I'm married to an immigrant. My wife immigrated here from Ukraine. There is no social safety net in Ukraine. If you get sick, right, there's no program there where you can go to the hospital and get health care. You're probably going to die.
Wait. This the thing, and I don't mean to interrupt, but there is places like that outside of America where those programs are, and it seems to be ran better with less amount of money. Now, when I say better, obviously everyone is coming to America to actually get a piece of the pie. I do want to go back to one thing, this concept of business, and I'm gonna start with Rachel. And this concept of business, this idea that America is a business. The only people that choose to look at America as a business are the Republicans when they're in power, and they use business narratives related to how to deal with funds. That only happens when Republicans are in power. When the Republicans are not in power and Democrat makes cuts, then they go to the woe is me or they go to the victimhood. So
when do Democrats make cuts though?
But hold on,
when
wait.
do Democrats make cuts?
But wait. Let's go to Rachel. Rachel, what are your thoughts on this concept that America is a business and is typically viewed as a business, and the terminology is used mostly when Republicans are in power?
Well, they say the victors get to write history, right?
Okay. That's
So
all.
those that Those that win elections get to write the history, and right now what we're seeing is not a good history at all. And this is not a business; it's supposed to be a democracy, but we can see that that's not working out. So, Donald Trump looks at this as a business. I don't understand why. But the thing is, you can look at it however, but there are real lives at stake and, plenty of, people at stake within this business. So if you look at this as a business, how do you treat people at your business? Is this how you do people at your business? You fire them, you want to take away their social safety nets and things of that nature.
But let's be
So,
real. This is actually how Donald Trump did business for years. And
right, right.
I'm not
And he
casting
wasn't a
aspersions.
successful
Right.
businessman as well.
I'm not casting any dispersions, but if we're going to make a parallel, we did hire, quote unquote, elect an individual that has absolutely no political or public experience other than offering a service or merchandise. If you're looking at it from that level, he's literally doing exactly what he said he would do.
And that's what the
Right.
people voted for.
And it's up
That's
to,
what
and it's
77
our
million
fault.
people voted for. I
Yeah.
mean, just to Rachel's point, right? The victors write the history. I mean, what he went through between, the 2020 election and where we are today. I think that I was just talking to somebody the other day.
Well, hold on, time out. Let's
Yeah.
reset because we're not going to do any victimhood of an individual. We're not going to do a victimhood of individuals that have created their own struggles. If we can't do it, if those that are, pull your bootstraps up by yourself are individuals that say you got to pull your own bootstraps, and you got to, look at your life choices. We're not going to say, look what he went through. These are choices that he made and, based off of what was going on. But I do want James to finish his point. Let me first reset it. This is Unapologetic with Eric King. We're looking at Trump's first 100 days. We got my brother, James Bates. We got Karlton Lassiter. And we also got our regular, monthly wrap of Rachel Hill on. The point that was just made is before we jump off to our quick break, and I do want James to finish, and you got about a minute to finish, then we'll bring it back on the other side. I do, finish your point about this concept of business and how things, and let's not lionize while victimizing, Trump, or viewing Trump as a victim. He's not a victim. But go ahead and finish your point.
I mean, I wasn't going to characterize him as a victim. All I was going to say is that, the political comeback of Trump is something that I don't think, the best probably screenwriter in Hollywood could have written. That does, I think that speaks a lot to who he is, his character, the type of person that he is. America does like a good comeback story. Let's just admit that. But in any case, what I was going to say, as far as it pertains to business, though, I understand we're talking about real lives. We're talking about real people, right? But again, I got to look through it from a realistic, pragmatic view, right? Let's just be honest, folks. Some folks are going to fall between the cracks. We're not going to be able to help everybody. So we just have to do the best that we can with what we have, right? I mean, I'll share this with you guys. Currently, right now, I've been out of work since mid-January, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in that unemployment pool right now. This is the longest time I've ever been unemployed in my entire 25 plus year career, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not sitting up here like poo-pooing about it. It's something that happened. You move on. You live day to day. The thing is, you got to be prepared for the bad stuff, right? And just move on. Now, I know that probably sounds like pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but
that's exactly what it sounds like.
That's what it sounds like. I know it does. But hold on,
I get it. We're gonna take a quick break, about a 30-second break. We're gonna come back on the other side. We're gonna finish this up. We got to also bring Rachel back in so she can give us her quick monthly wrap up. But this is Unapologetic on WOVU 95.9 FM. All right, let's continue this fun. Unapologetic with it on WOVU 95.9 FM. We do have on the line, we have James Bates. He is not to use the word staunch, but he is a staunch. I don't say MAGA. I just don't. It's offensive in my opinion because it's just some BS. So I'm just not going to say it.
I appreciate that.
As a Black person, no time where America was ever as great for everyone that had a level of melanin that that even I have, because I'm bathed in a mug. But, but I'm just saying, I don't use that term, and I choose not to use that term. So we got James Bates, who is a a supporter of Trump. We also have Karlton Lassiter, who is a political supporter, and then we have our regular co-host for the monthly wrap up, Rachel Hill. So on the other side, Rach, I do want you to finish your point about this idea of business. I know I interrupted and I didn't mean to
Yeah,
in that
it's
way,
okay.
but I wanted
It's
to
okay.
just, really be real. We are literally getting exactly what we voted for. And that doesn't mean that that's a good thing. And I just simply hope that we learn something. But go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just saying the concept of business. James said that people fall through the cracks, but we can't look at it like that. Every person is important because 1 million people went through the cracks when we had COVID. So are they no less, important than anybody else? James, you mentioned that you have been unemployed, and I'm sorry to hear that. Have you been utilizing unemployment?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a service that the government provides because taxpayers pay into that, and you've paid in
Yes.
that, and you're able
Yes.
to utilize that. What if
Yes.
that is something that entitlement that's on the chopping block, and they just say, "Hey, you lose your job, we're going to get rid of unemployment. You lose your job, you just should have saved up." Those are things that people shouldn't through the cracks. You shouldn't fall through the cracks. I've used unemployment myself, but these are looked at upon as entitlements. What if these are taken away? People don't deserve to fall through the cracks, and we can't look at it like that because your life is important. Everybody's life is important. So I just wanted to say that. Also, that ain't what I voted for, but that's besides the point. But because Elon helped Trump win that election, so
All right, wait. Go
yeah,
ahead. What you was about? Go ahead.
yeah.
What was your
But
final point before we jump off?
when we look at business and we look at people, people run the businesses. So these aren't things in which we can just choose to ignore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to take care of people. So Donald Trump and his method of business, he's not known as being, a successful businessman. Yeah, we look at, The Apprentice and all that other stuff. First of all, he was gifted all that money. He didn't build that on himself. But he's also been bankrupted, what, 6, 7 times, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So,
but
we can
but I
like
would.
the way he does business, but it's not a great way. And he's enriched himself in the presidency as well with all this new business. So,
So,
you
so
can look at
James,
it however you want to.
James, you got 30 seconds on that
I
before we
was just gonna,
jump
I was just gonna
to the
push
next
back a
point.
little bit, right? I
Go ahead.
understand that Trump did obviously have money or whatever, right? But there's a lot of people that maybe have had money or had advantages or some privileges that others wouldn't have, but built something even greater out of that, right? So I wouldn't just totally like dismiss Trump as like he didn't build anything, he didn't do anything. I mean, I'm the son of an entrepreneur, right? My father had several businesses throughout his life.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I mean, so going in business, taking that risk is something that a lot of people not even going to ever do, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump over to Karlton on that one, and just give us a little 30 seconds on that. And I got as a business owner, there are ways to do things, and in doing those things, I have understood that the ways that there's a level of greed. Let's just be real. I don't know how better to say it, and we only got about 9 more minutes. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So I listened to what everybody was saying because there's not much I don't disagree with what you and what Rachel have said. I will say this though. One, when I was back in graduate school doing public administration, the first thing we learned was government is not a business, it is a public good.
Okay.
The goal of government is not to have a bottom line that is in the black. It is not even or to even raise an X number of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It is to meet the needs that are not met by the private or nonprofit sectors in community, and to provide those at whatever cost that may be for the people.
Okay.
And we have to figure out, and we know what those things are. We have the established entitlement programs like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and those things. And that's the bulk of the U.S. budget in conjunction with our defense spending.
Yeah, I got you.
And the DoD. When you're not, what's left is generally maybe about 10-15% of the U.S.'s overall spending, and that leaves a lot of things that make up that small 15%.
Right.
As I mentioned before, they are now things that we are now seeing as being vital when they are cut in a way that is not measured, not strategic, just wholesale. Like, hey, it's not doing. We don't, basically what Trump and their administration has determined is not being valuable or an asset to them, whether it not through creating revenue or through having a direct interest in their personal businesses. They've decided to eliminate, and we've seen how that has created a lot of issues for everyday folks and folks specifically that vote for them. When you got that the representative in Florida who's a Republican, the congresswoman.
Okay, I thought you were talking about but go ahead. Santos. I thought you were talking about Santos Kat
Kamik, who
I got you.
in Florida was having a life-threatening childbirth, but her state, which Trump has mirrored a lot of his policies based on Florida, had such staunch and strong anti-abortion laws that it put them in peril. And so when you see that happening, but tenfold in a variety of other ways, not just in one specific area, this is only beginning. We're only 6 months in to a 4-year term. We've got 3.5 years left. Right?
So this is unapologetic afterwards. So this is what they call it, unapologetic with Eric King afterwards. So what I do want to get to, because I hate it when, and Rayson jumped off. I hate it when we don't have solutions. I really need solutions. I need us to have hope. I'm a therapist for a reason, right? That, and not even the hope that is problematic, right? Hope is, what did what's the name say? Hope is the opiate of masses. I can't even think his name. But at any case, when I say hope, what I'm really saying is fill other individuals' cups. So what I want you to do, we got about 5 minutes. I'm not going to overstay my welcome. What I want you to do is really quickly, we're going to start with James. I need you to be quick, okay? What are three items that we as a society can look at in order to support fellow Americans as we go through the next decade of our life? I know that's broad, but I mean, it's real, because what is going on today is going to affect us 10 years from now. And I really need us to be a support to one another. So give it to me quickly before they get rid of me.
Quite honestly, I'm just going to jump into this. I think we need to do a lot more probably on the local level of supporting one another. And what I mean by that is making sure that as a citizenry, that we are engaged in local politics, that we are engaged in what is going on literally in our backyard. We get all, I think, up in arms oftentimes about what's going on in DC and at the federal level, when we really can make the most impact literally in our own backyard.
Okay. So Karlton, you up next. Give us just what we need, but okay, let me go backwards. What I heard James say is literally look at from the bottom up in order to support, everything that we have going on, bottom up approach, right?
Yeah.
And thank you for, being specific and identifying that we don't need to look higher, but we definitely need to look lower, or in quote unquote grassroots, which used to be a very dirty word back in the day. Go ahead, Karlton, what you got?
Yeah, so I agree with James. We need to definitely be looking at how do we build that power and that mobilize folks at the local and state levels. I think we all know that cities and states are laboratories for how programs and things that we see that eventually trickle up to the federal level. But I do think at the same time, we do need to be holding and having more direct engagement with our federal folks, whether that is legislators, whether that's the president or whoever it might be, and be able to have conversations or town halls or whatever it is, and say directly, like, these are the things that we want. These are the things that we are voting for. Why are we how are we not getting to some sort of solution? And I think that one thing that people are tired of is seeing that whether, regardless of who the party that's in power, that all it takes is one person to kind of just like derail seemingly to a bunch of things,
good or bad, good or on both sides.
And I think at some point we're all like, we have to make certain compromises in our own life. So what is it where the issue with government at any level now seems to be like it's either all or nothing. Like sometimes we just got to take something and not so much take what we can get, but we got to actually be willing to say like these are things that we can be flexible on, or let's set this aside for a further conversation and let's enhance and get what we can that we do agree on the table and get this passed expeditiously. So you know.
So let's wrap it up so that we can get up out of here. Quick question, and I want each one of you to be quick about this. So we're roughly about 18 months away from the next cycle, presidential cycle, so to speak, starting. So James, from your side, who do you think will be the next quote unquote golden child of the Republican Party that's going to run for office?
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Anybody?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Because we are 18 months away from
this. I mean, we are.
It very well be Donald Trump.
Yeah. We ain't going to go down that road. All right. So, Karlton, who do you think from the Democratic side? Who do you think?
So I'm not going to say who we should have. I think that as Democrats, we should be willing to engage in the primary process and let it work its course.
Okay.
I think we've seen time and time and again when we've tried to have someone picked or we want this person that's there for us to vote for, we eventually fall out of love with them, or we have some issue and they end up losing. So let's just actually let the process work. We didn't know anything about Barack Obama at all.
That's
except for his speech at the convention. But we let the process work in Iowa in these primaries, and we found the right person for us at that time.
Okay. So, all right. So we're gonna jump off, and
I agree with you there, Karlton.
Studio back. I appreciate you guys for staying, sticking and staying. And I see you guys. Hell, in like what? At this rate, in about 2 years, a year and a half. All right,
maybe 6 months at this rate.
All right,
another 6 months, I'm sure, right? Yeah.